guys. Final game of the season this week, and anything has to be better than the rubbish we've just had. That game was Twin Eagle, developed by Sita and released by Taito in 1988. We've had 4 shmups in a row now, and whilst I wasn't a huge fan of XDX's, I did enjoy both Slapfire and Flying Shark, and they are all better than this game. Twin Eagle is notable for its use of pre-rendered sprites and digitised sound, which unfortunately is a little dated in 2021. The most annoying part of that being the horse-like sounds that appear when you pick up a power-up. The problem with this game is that it just doesn't get the basics right. Nothing feels very memorable, and simple things like flickering bullets are unforgivable. When trees explode after you shoot them and give you a chunk of points, destroying enemies just doesn't have as much satisfaction. Something I particularly dislike about this game is the variable difficulty. Lose a life early on, and the first boss section, where the game speeds up, is fairly straightforward. Clear the first level easily, and the game will try to punish you. Given that the upgrades are very significant, particularly the speed ones, meaning that you can actually dodge bullets, taking cheap lives off of you hardly seems fair. We'll see with the scores how many people have finished similarly, showing how the game isn't really providing a balanced challenge.
So, this mediocre arcade game saw one home release, and that was on the NES in 1989, a year after the arcade game was released. So let's fire it up and take a look. So firstly, anyone who has played the arcade game will be saying, well, what level is this? And for some reason, the developers of the NES version decided to rearrange the levels. I don't know whether that's because they wanted to put the best level first, or they felt that maybe the graphics on this level looked better than some of the other stages, the kind of countryside levels that the arcade game starts with. But yeah, so if you play this, you're not going to get the same experience. Purely, even just the structure of the game is not the same. And then this game was notable for its use of pre-rendered sprites and digitized sound. And there's no way an 8-bit machine is going to be able to do that any form of justice. And so what you have is a kind of interpretation of Twin Eagle that kind of captures the theme and maybe some of the level layouts of that game. But that aspect of Twin Eagle is probably the weakest aspect. The game is really about the presentation, and the setting and the game mechanic are all pretty forgettable, if not terrible in some aspects. And so what you've got is a really very generic shooter. Most of the time you're pretty slow. There are some speed upgrades. You see some of the power-ups appearing, and again, because you're kind of limited in terms of graphics, there's none of the ship flying over dropping items for you. It's literally more traditional enemies dying and yielding power-ups. So that's different as well. In terms of the graphics, something that's pretty noticeable is the kind of lack of colour on the enemy vessels. So your helicopter is shades of yellow. Most of the enemies are shades of yellow. You see the blue jet there, but they're all monochrome. They don't look that good, I would say. So really, this is a pretty poor version, I would say. Pretty uninteresting game. The NES has some much better shmups than this. Even XDX's on the Famicom that we featured a few weeks ago, I would say is better than this. So yeah, not one I would recommend. The only upside I can see is generally the bullets aren't flickering, which is one of the biggest issues of the arcade game, in terms of it being annoying, with many of its kind of cheap deaths and not always spotting the bullets that have killed you. This section, we see this kind of the speed up. This is actually done quite nicely, I would say. Probably the better bits of what I've seen of the NES game. But yeah, not one I'd recommend. And yeah, let's move on to the scores.
We had 18 people play this week, including a return from Retrotron 2084, who hasn't played all season. He finishes in 12th, just ahead of me, with possibly my lowest ever finish. Rounding out the top 10 is Bob, who's put a bit more time in this week. He's unlucky, I'd say, to finish so far down, given how close the scoring was. KMA and Arcade GG join him in the 900,000s. Between 1 and 1.1 million, we have Mark in 7th through to Juff in 3rd, and only just ahead we have our top 2. My Retro Tech has his best ever finish in 2nd, but narrowly taking this week's win, with possibly his first win since all the way back in Season 1, is Robert. He did choose the game, but it's still a great effort, and things were extremely close this week. Here is the distribution of the scores, and we can see things are looking different to any game that we've had before. The distribution is completely skewed to the right, with 7 people all in the top bin, and 4 in the previous one. This shows how the scoring is effectively broken in this game. About half of everyone playing were able to get very close to the winning score, but no one was able to get beyond that, meaning the balance is off, and it was a bit of a crapshoot as to who took the win. Now the difficulty curve. Like the score distribution, this is looking pretty weird. We have an initial plateau showing that doing around 500,000 is pretty doable. There is then a steep climb before things level off again. We've never seen such a big plateau at the top before, again highlighting what a weird week it's been. And finally, the progress over the week. Most of the action happened on the first 2 days. We see Juff was the first to post a 1,000,000 point score, and then gradually over the week, people got close to that, but none were able to progress much beyond that point. By the end of the week, we can see just how cluttered things are at the top. With only 1 game left, this is what the scores are looking like. Our big mover is My Retro Tech after that 2nd place this week. He's up 4 into 12th. Mark is up 2 into 9th. Leagsy and Robert have got ahead of Colin and now tied on points. The battle for 3rd is very much on, with anyone from Paul, who's just taken 3rd from KMA, down to Colin are all in with a shot of that final podium place. Our top 2 remain unchanged, but Graham hasn't won yet. Juffa has closed the gap by 20 points and is now 85 points behind. This means for Juff to win, he needs to take the final game win, with Graham outside of the top 10. Unlikely, but possible. So let's see what this week's game is. So I've had 17 games sent to me, including a chunk of Capcom Sid PS1 games. The only one nomination was Blockout, which I have fond memories of on the Mega Drive and remember playing it on a family friend's Windows 3.1 machine a very long time ago. Our winner Robert also nominated Blockout, so that gives it 5 out of 19 chances of coming up. Let's set things going and see what we get. There we go, slowing down. What we're going to get, Blockout. It looks like it's Blockout. Very good. So I'm well pleased with that, and it's my selection too. So yeah, Blockout is a 3D Tetris game. So back with the puzzles. I think it's a nice change from the shmups we've had. I'll go make a short video. I'm back in a sec. So this week's game is Blockout, released by Technos in 1989. I was hoping for Tetris last week, but I'll happily settle for this week. I've had a couple of games to record the footage here, and this game is so up my street it's not true. It's the same game as Tetris, but now with an extra dimension, so you have 2 axes of rotation and a 3D playing field that you view from the top down. This makes things tricky when you cover the holes, as you can't see them unlike the 2D game. And this game is very much more mind-bending. I'd be surprised if this is a popular one, but it's certainly a unique game, and I'm glad it's come up. As I mentioned, I played it on Windows 3.1, and even as a small child, I remember being fairly decent at it. We'll be playing starting from the warm-up level and making our way through. Once you clear a few layers, the game moves on to a different shaped playing field. Get to level 5, and you get a big open playing field, with lots more shapes and sizes of block. We'll be playing the Set 1 ROM with default settings. Given this is the last game of the season, I don't need any more suggestions from you. I hope you all enjoyed playing some Blockout this week, and I'll be back next week to wrap the season up and reveal what we'll be doing for Season 7. See you then.
It's coming home.